Hi guys, hello and welcome here, and we will now be learning how you can create tables in HTML, and that will be our focal point for today. So in order for you to create, as you can see in this web page that I have brought forth for you guys, I can refresh so that you can see that there are no tables right now on this page, and right underneath the nightly schedule is where I will be building my table. And this is the location, line number 5354 is where I will be building my tables. So in HTML, in order for you to build a table, we use a table tag with an opening and closing. If you want to create rows inside a table, we use the tr, opening and closing. If this row is a heading row, where you want to display the column headings, we use th for opening and closing, and then we can have multiple occurrences of that. And if this row is one of the body rows for description of any of the contents, we use the td cell for that purpose so that we can describe whatever we want to display. There are some HTML5 elements that were added, and these are not available in the older versions of HTML or older editions of HTML. So we will be using some of those tags as well. One of the old tags is caption tag, which is generally used to display a caption on your tables. For example, all times central is the caption that I'm using right here. This is my row, first row, the heading row, and I will be displaying in one column time and another column, let's say I want to display Monday. Let me fix my time column here. I wrote it inside, it should be outside, okay, just like that. And inside the TDs, the very first TD I have, I would like to display DLR ends its broadcast day at 10:30 p.m. So that goes in my very first cell. And in my second cell, I can put some additional information if I want to put additional information. So this is how I can go about creating different cells. For example, I said, okay, this is where I want let's see how it looks like at this point before we go ahead and test more. So let me refresh my output. And here you can see that DLR ends its broadcast day at 10:30 p.m. And that's what appears right here inside under the time. And under the Monday column, you don't see anything. So for example, if I add over here another TD before the DLR ends its broadcast by 10:30 p.m., and I add, let's say, a time, and then save the changes, and then refresh the output, and now you will see under time 8 p.m. and under Monday DLR ends its broadcast day at 10:30 p.m. and this is where my caption is displaying all times central. If I want a particular column to go more than one column, I can actually do that as well. And let me add some more THs at the top. That will help us do our next task. Okay, so I will be adding for Monday through Sunday different cells, and each representing one day of the week. So now I want this particular event that is actually starting Monday to go all the way through. Okay, so I could actually do that as well. Now let me introduce some more tags to you before I start building the central piece of this. In HTML5, you can actually use a t-head tag, opening and closing, and this will identify that these cells are to be displayed at the top of the table. And then you can also use t-foot tag to identify that these tags will be at the bottom of the table. And in the middle or anywhere in your description, you could be writing T body, which will be the body of the table. So in the body, I can then start building the rest of the page. So for example, I want in the body one row for my first entry here, and on that very first entry, I want to have one heading cell that says at 6 p.m. time, it will be national news. And let me save the changes and let refresh. As you can see, the national news comes under Monday, where Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday has nothing underneath it. And DLR ends at broadcast day. That is currently coming only under the first column. If I want DLR end its broadcast day at 10:30 p.m. across all the columns, so what I will do is I will go to the TD and I will use a call span equals to 8 because there are a total of 8 columns, 7 days of the week and the time. I'll save the changes and I'll refresh, and now this is basically what appears across the board. Now since the sentence length is smaller than the width of all the columns, that's why you can see that it's actually spanning through across the board for all of them. Likewise, I can build all of these different cells accordingly. So if I want to build another row, let me copy this row, the first one, and paste it again. And then I can change the time to 6:30 in the second one. And instead of national news, I will type world news. And then let me have another row where I start at 7 p.m. and I can have multiple items listed here, such as in this one, I want to have Opera Fest, Radio U, Science Week, and these will go in respective days. So Monday is Opera Fest, Tuesday is Radio U at 7 p.m., and at 7 p.m. on Wednesday will be the Science Week, and like that I can start filling in multiple items. So let's say I want the living world to be the next item for the next day at the same time, and likewise I can start filling in and let me save the changes and refresh. And you can see for 7 p.m. in all 7 days, this information is coming through. Now, if I want national news and world news to be the same time for all 7 days, I can actually do that by coming to the national news. And I can say, you know what, national news, I want you to span multiple columns. How many columns should I pick? 7. Why? Because the first column out of the 8 columns is already taken care by the time. So the time is gone. The remaining 7 columns, I want the national news every day. And I can repeat the same for world news, that col span equals to 7. So now after that change, when I refresh and hit, so you can see world news and national news that were coming on 2 lines are not coming on 1 line. And that means that's an indicator that it's all the way across the board like that. And let me add here one more row for 7:30 p.m. So for 7:30 p.m. is the time. And let me add here brain stew as one item, and then let me add Bismarck Forum as another item. Now, as you can see, when I refresh my output, that brain stew automatically went under Monday and Tuesday. So notice 7:30 p.m. is not as bold as the other items and it's not even right aligned. The reason is because I use TD instead of TH. If I change it to TH and save the changes and refresh, now you can see that it's center aligned and it's in bold. So Brain Stew automatically comes 7:30 Monday and Bismarck Forum comes Tuesday. Now here is what I want to show you what row span can do. So let me go up to Opera Fest, and let's say Opera Fest is supposed to be 1 hour long on Monday. So I can go ahead and here I can say row span equals to 2 on Opera Fest. And here you can see that Opera Fest actually goes from 7 to 8. It covers both blocks. And when it covers both blocks, Brain Stew and Bismarck Forum automatically gets pushed to the right. Now let me try to do something very similar with Radio U. So row span equals to 2. And repeat the same for Science Week, the Living World, and the Folk Fest. So what happens is that Folk Fest, the Living World, Science Week, Radio U, and Opera Fest will span 2 rows. And Wordplay and Agriweek, or let me call it Agriweek, will only span 1 row. So what will happen automatically, that Brain Stew will come under Wordplay because that's the only empty space, because all the other items are taking multiple rows, and Bismarck Forum will automatically come under Agriweek. Let me show you after I save the changes. As you can see over here, that Brain Stew and Bismarck will come under these items. The rest of the items are spanning multiple rows. And this, as I expand my table just a little bit, you can start to see how it pans out better when I am in this much stretched out mode. Now let's quickly add some more rows to the table. So what I did, I added another row for 8 o'clock where I am making the classical music connection to span multiple rows and multiple columns. So it will automatically take 4 rows and 4 columns. That means in this row, since it has already taken up 4 rows out of the 7 days of the week, only 3 more items are remaining. So that's why I'm putting Old Radio Time and Saturday Night Jazz and the Indie Connection, so that to cover up all 7 columns. Now you have to keep in mind that the classical music connection is not just occupying 1 cell in its current row, but it's also occupying 1 cell in each of the remaining 3 rows or the 3 rows after. Therefore, in next 3 rows, you will have 1 cell less because of classical music connection. Also, because of Saturday, and also since it's going 4 columns wide, so it is basically blocking the first 4 columns of an existing row and the next 3 rows. So next 3 rows will now only have 3 columns to work with so far. But as you can see, because of lines 96 and 97, which are going across 4 rows also, that means the next 4 rows, next 3 rows will also lose those 2 columns. So as a result, the next 3 rows would only have very less columns to work with. So the 8:30 p.m. column only is left with 1 more cell to work with. And 9 o'clock column is also left with only 1 cell to work with. But 9 o'clock column actually has a cell that spans 2 rows. As a result, it occupies its own placeholder and also in the next line. As a result, the 9:30 rows has nothing, no placeholder, because open night is occupying 2 rows. So it will be 9 o'clock through 10 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock, the world news feed is across the board for all rows. So this is basically the resulting item, as you can see. The classical music connection. The classical music connection goes 4 rows for 8 o'clock to 9:30 and 4 columns Monday through Thursday. And the Saturday jazz goes Saturday 8:30 all the way through the next 4 rows. So that's why there's nothing else in Saturday jazz underneath that. And the Saturday night jazz. And then the indie connection is also the same way. It occupies 8:30 all the way through the next 4 rows. So from 8 o'clock all the way through 9:30, the 4 rows. And world news, which is at 10 o'clock, occupies all the way through that 1 row. So this is basically how the tables are created. And the tables can span multiple rows, span multiple columns, and you can use these kind of things. One more thing I want to teach you here, which was introduced in HTML5, which is called a column grouping. This is actually very handy in CSS. So when I teach you the CSS part of the tables, that's where it will come pretty handy. So right after the caption, I'm creating a column group, and I'm creating 2 groupings. The first column group is ID'd first, and the second column group has been given a classification called days column, and it will span the next 7 columns, just so that the computer will know that whatever properties I will be given to the class, and whatever property class called days call, and whatever properties I will be given to the ID first, or let me call it ID first call, to resonate it with the same name as line 58 days call. And those properties will be applied to the respective columns. So since this doesn't span any columns, it automatically by default spans 1 column, and this will span 7 columns. So the time CSS will be applied on first call, and the days CSS will apply to the span 7 column. So this will be the end result of that, and I'll show you the CSS so that you know that how the CSS is applying on these items. So the code that I have added is to the column field. I have added the first column ID with the background color and a width. And for all the remaining columns, I've added this background color and with that width. As a result, when I come over here and refresh my output after I make changes and save the changes, I can see that this is my first column and this is all the remaining columns I have. Also, let me create my table and give it a class called schedule. And let me show you what CSS properties I have written for the schedule class. So I created a class schedule assigned to the table, gave it a background color, border collapse, and all of the other properties for fonts and stuff like that. Then all the T8s and TD of the table schedule will have a border, padding, and vertical align. And the caption will be located in the bottom right corner. By default, the caption is in the center and at the top. All the T heads, because there's a T head section, as I showed you here in my HTML table, that the T head section, which has all the column headings, that section will get its own background and a text color white. The footer will have its own background and a text color white. And then each row inside the header will be given a height of 30 pixels, and each of the row in the body will be given the height of 40 pixels. So these are some of the additional properties that I have assigned. So with that in place, if we want to now run and see the output, this is the output that we have, as you can see right here, that these with all the properties applied. So this gives you a much better look and feel that the national news spans 7 columns. World news also spans 7 columns. Opera, Radio U, Science Week, The Living World, and Folk Fest span 2 rows. Wordplay, Agri Week, Brain Stew, Bismarck Forum, they only come in 1 cell. The Classical Music Connection span 4 rows, 4 columns. Old Time Radio, The Inner Mind, they only span 1 column, 1 row. Open Mic Night spans 1 column but 2 rows. That's why 9:30 p.m. has nothing to enter because the first 4 columns are already taken by the Classical Music Connection. The only remaining column is taken by the Open Mic Night, and Saturday Night Jazz spans 4 columns. So does the Indie Connection, spans 4 columns. World News Feed goes across the board. And this is the foot of the table, the only cell that spans all 8 columns. So I hope this would have helped you understand how you can create tables in HTML and also how you can apply CSS properties to the HTML tables.